Starting off this Friday Peace Talks, we have got a video recommended by Wireless Mike. Thank you very much, Mike. It's Bo the Fifth column talking about one heck of a creative veto. Let's have a look.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again.
Howdy,
So
Bo.
today we are going to talk about Wisconsin, the governor, and the super veto that the governor in Wisconsin has, and how it was recently used in perhaps one of the funniest ways imaginable. Up
That's a good way to put it. Funny is a good way to put it. You'll see.
there, the governor has the ability to strike just certain pieces from legislation and move forward with it and sign it. Okay, so Governor Tony Evers up there, he got some legislation. It included a GOP tax cut for the rich, of course. First, he used his super veto to slash the tax cut itself, the total amount. It went from like 3.5 billion down to 175 million, and he vetoed the cuts for like the highest tax brackets.
Now, truth be told, that is the part that personally I think is going to do the most good, because I think it's going to stick, but that's not the funny part.
So the wealthy are not getting the tax cuts that other people are. That in and of itself is humorous. That's a unique use of that power. The other thing he did was far more imaginative. There was a part of it that included, I want to say it was $325 per student per year in schools' ability to get extra revenue, in school funding. And it was, according to legislation, it was set to be used for 2023 to 2024 and 2024 to 2025. Okay, so he slashed out the 2023 to 2024, and then in the 2024 to 25 part, which was written 2024-25, he vetoed the 20 and the hyphen, creating this additional funding until the year 2425. 400 years of increased revenue.
Okay. So being that it's Peace Talks, we're going to listen to all of what Bo has to say about this, but I want to jump in. I love it, first of all. Delighted that he did this. Good work, Evers. Second, I don't think it should stand. I mean, that is clearly not how that power was meant to be used. He has clearly changed too much with his... He's clearly added rather than subtracted with his veto ability. However, why am I glad he did it? This is a good way to force the GOP to do the work of creating fair rules. These are not people, GOP politicians. These are not people who, well, they're not human beings, first of all. Second of all, so they're just not people. But they're also not people who are interested in fairness. So what do you do if you've got someone that's either going to cut themselves the biggest piece of cake or complain, no matter how carefully you cut the cake, that their piece is too small? Well, you say you can decide who cuts it, but whoever cuts the cake the other person chooses which piece they get. In other words, you force a situation where they must advocate for fairness at all times. This is the way to handle them. What's going to happen? This is going to go to the Supreme Court. By the time it gets there, it's likely going to be under Democrat control, but that doesn't mean they're going to do the at a Wisconsin level what the GOP Supreme Court is doing at the national level, because Democrats actually have principles. What's probably going to happen is they are going to say Governor Evers cannot do this. But it will then establish that this cannot be used for other similar things. So that if there is a Republican governor in control, they cannot do this kind of chicanery. And make no mistake, they absolutely would. So, look, if it gets through the Supreme Court, well, we discover that these schools are now funded for 400 years. Good. Good. But when it doesn't, then we've established precedent that limits the ability of an insane rule which should have never been there to begin with. On a related note, hopefully this will encourage bipartisan support for changing that ability that the governor has in Wisconsin. Overall, a brilliant move, an excellent move by Evers. I think intentionally lampshading a power he should not have. And he's got some making up to do, so good.
I'm sure that some would suggest that that is an abuse of executive power.
Oh, it is, for sure.
I got to be honest, I'm not even mad. That's impressive. That is fantastic. Obviously, this is going to end up going to court. I am certain Republicans in Wisconsin are not happy about the governor becoming Vanna White up there and just, using certain letters. Now, the interesting part about that is that in the past, there have been rulings against this type of use of veto, even though I cannot imagine one.
I did not know that.
Imaginative. But in August, the Supreme Court up there, it shifts and it becomes a liberal majority.
Yeah, but liberals, despite their various flaws, they have principles. They're not gonna let him do this. I would actually be a little worried if they did. And now that I say that, I'm a little worried that they might. But no, I simply don't think that's going to happen. I do want to say something else that's genius about this, and I don't think there's enough time left in the thing for him to point it out. Oh, yeah, so maybe I'll sit on it. Now, all right. It puts Republicans in the awkward position of having to further defend their monstrous positions. What are they going to be fighting so hard against? Schools being funded. It ends up being, it's going to stretch out. It's going to become something that sticks in the memory because it is repeated over and over and over again, these arguments back and forth. And all Democrats have to do is say, why is it they are fighting so hard to stop schools from being funded? Look at how much they don't want your kids to be educated. Why is that? You got to ask. It's a very savvy move. It's a shot that was not meant. It's a move that wasn't meant to be a checkmate, but it was meant to be to have to be defended against, and weakening the opponent in the defense. Genius. Now that is genuinely 3D chess, as they say in hack media. Let's see what how Bo puts a bow on it.
So there's a chance that this actually holds.
Doubtful.
But make no mistake about it, there's going to be a pretty lengthy legal fight over this, I'm sure. But definitely some interesting news coming out of Wisconsin. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.
You as well, Bo. All right, so recap. What happened in a bill that gave schools funding through 2025? The governor in Wisconsin used the governor's ability to just remove parts, just veto parts of legislation to to veto specific numbers of the date range given, so that it says 2023 through 24 something. So to give an extra 397 years of funding to schools. What is going to happen? Certainly, it is going to be objected to in court by the Wisconsin GOP, at which point, rather interestingly, it should arrive in Wisconsin Supreme Court with a liberal majority. What will be accomplished by this? I gotta even temper Bo's expectations here. The Wisconsin Supreme Court is not going to let this fly. What a court essentially does is determine whether or not something broke the letter or the spirit of a law. If it's very clear what a law is saying you can and cannot do, and you do such malicious compliance that you're technically within the bounds of it on paper, very often a court will say, you know what you did, and what you did was wrong. Quoting my middle school vice principal there. So that is what I expect out of the court. But that, I don't think, was the goal. I don't think Governor, Evers? I don't think the governor in Wisconsin truly thought that was going to be the thing gained by doing this. What is going to be gained? Republicans are going to have to get up and do the work themselves and spend the money to fight in court fixing a law that, by the way, they themselves created. An unfair law which should not be. They're going to have to undo it because Democrats finally are learning to hit them, to pick up the javelins that were thrown at them and throw them right back. To hit them with their own, what do you call it? Stones, I guess. Good. And it puts Republicans in the awkward position of having to restate what they're all about. Remember that there are Republican voters who have been told what Republican policy is, who have said, I don't believe that. You're lying to me. I heard a commentator on YouTube talking about that recently. I've had that happen in person in just local news interviews. And if it was happening in my neck of the woods, my little sliver of this country, then it was most likely happening all over. And that's not a surprise, because Republicans go out of their way to paint a different picture of what they're all about than is true. So and Democrats historically have just let them get away with it. And they've sort of tapped their noses and been like, oh, but the voters will understand that we're here being mature. Finally, Democrats are waking up to reality. And finally, they're being smart. And they are forcing the GOP to own what they're all about. So the GOP, what are they going to have to complain about with these cuts? The rich, and only the rich, aren't getting tax cuts. And school children are getting funding. Good job, Wisconsin governor, for lampshading what Republicans are all about and forcing them to do it themselves. Brilliant move.